Hi, my name's Gav and welcome to the channel. The F1 Frigate, it's powerful, it's stable and it's easy to use. But can it replace your wind wing? Well, I think this one may just be the ticket. I've been using it in a whole host of different conditions, from light winds to overpowered sessions, and I have to tell you, the Frigate delivers. But is it worth the cost, and how does it stand up against the rest? If you want to find out, stick around and we'll answer those questions. So before we do get started, I want to remind you the sole purpose for this channel is to raise money for Bear Cottage, the children's hospice based here in Sydney. They provide 24-hour palliative care for paediatrics and they really need our help. By liking, subscribing and sharing this video, you really help generate a revenue through advertising. If this video resonates with you, you found it really useful, then you can show your appreciation by doing a donation directly. Reach out to me and I will forward the details. Now, on that note, I want to do a massive thank you to the brands that support me on this journey. And that's North, Armstrong, WSS Boards, the Foil Board Company, Foil Sessions app, and of course, Code Foils. Thank you guys. Without you, simply couldn't do this. Now, straight off the bat, you'll notice that the Frigate has an incredible wind range, both at the low end grunt to get you up onto foil, but it really handles the gusts and the top end of its wind range. This is something that's been plaguing Power Wings since their inception, but manufacturers are starting to get their head around this now, and this new generation of wings, well, we're seeing them almost match wind wings for their range. In terms of the Frigate, as I've mentioned, the low end is great. It allows you to pump up to foil really early. So as a learner, this obviously gets you onto foil and doing the sport that we love sooner. But as an intermediate and advanced, well, it means you can start using smaller wings or indeed a board or foil or any combination of that. Now, I'm no wing designer, but I think this is down to its ability to fly really well, but also the internal bridle cross structure. It's very complex. It changes the load depending on where you're sheeting. And this is what generates that power, that grunt to get you onto foil. Now, on the other end of the scale is the top end. And again, this structure changes the shape of the wing and it allows you to depower. It sits there, it's rock solid. There's no flapping, fluttering. It just allows you to push yourself in conditions that otherwise you wouldn't be able to go into. Now, a great side effect of having a good wind range means that you don't need to buy so many to cover the full spectrum. Yes, there are a lot in the lineup of the F1 Frigate, but I think you can get away with 2 and that will cover you across most conditions. For me and my experience level, well, I'm finding now that I'm matching my winging a wind range, which is just incredible to think how far we've come in 9 months or so. In fact, I think that the upper wind range is actually better than my wind wings right now, which is great because it means I can go out when it's absolutely howling in days where otherwise I'd be blown off the water. Now, the next point I want to talk about is its ability to go upwind. Now, this is super important for me because I spend a lot of time going upwind, packing it away, and then coming downwind again. That's how I use a power wing. The F1 Frigate is not only comfortable, it points really far forward in the wind window and it gets you to where you need to be. In terms of comparisons for going upwind, well, the wing that springs to mind is the Flysurfer POW. That's probably best in class, the best one I've used for going upwind. But I have to say the Frigate is not far off. When you combine this upwind performance with the harness line that's included, and we'll get onto that in a moment, and its rock solid stability and gusts, well, going upwind is a real joy. It's something that I used to find a chore and now I'm enjoying the experience. It allows you just to go into the eye of the wind and do what we all love, which is pack it away and ride those bumps downwind. Whether you're free riding, chasing waves, or you're doing the upwind, downwind sends, it just feels comfortable at all points of sail. It allows you to push your limits and try new things, and that's one of the reasons why I love this so much. Staying on the theme of control, I want to talk about the stability across all conditions, and that's when it's really light all the way through to absolutely overpowered. This cross-structure canopy, which I mentioned earlier, it just holds its shape. It makes it easy to fly. which is great for not only beginners, but as I mentioned, for the intermediates to the advanced guys. Well, you're going to go out in conditions that otherwise you wouldn't be able to. Let's move now on to some of the features that they've included. And the first one I want to talk about is the color coordination, which is just exceptional. Now, I'd like to think that F1 have been watching my videos, taking notes, because they have got my absolute preferences for color. Not only to distinguish, but also the coordination. What I mean by that, we've got the bar with a front leading edge, which is the same color as the front leading lines, the A lines, which is the same color as the leading edge. This is incredibly useful when you're going to deploy, because you know the orange is always up and it just stops tangles. Of course, the distinguishable leading edge, the line sets are all different colors, and the bar is 50-50, so again, you know which way is up. All these things are small, minute details, but trust me, they make a difference. This all points towards this attention to detail, and this is evident throughout the whole of the product. Now, sticking on the theme of the bar and this attention to detail, well, I have to say this is hands down the best one I've used so far. The length is perfect. 33 centimeters is enough to pack away into your stash belt, but it's also enough to have full control across the wind range. It's also worth noting that they've included a harness line with the product, and this is exceptional. It's the best one I've used so far. I was a little bit skeptical about it from just looking at the pictures. It looks quite cumbersome, but actually it folds away, it packs into your bag easily. You can hook in one-handed. It's the perfect length. They've done an incredible job here. Obviously, a lot of R&D and testing. Even if you're somebody that doesn't want to use a harness, well, just give it a go. Trust me, it will make the upwind sessions so much easier. Now, another area that brands have been struggling with is line length. And I have to say the Frigate, well, they've hit the nail on the head with this one. Even in the bigger sizes, the 4.7, it's no more than my span. I've got relatively short arms, and I just can pack it away. I can draw it in one go. It just makes the whole process slicker and easier to get into your stash belt. You'll notice there's no pulleys. This dynamic bridle system that I talked about earlier is really effective without having these extra complications and twitchiness of a pulley. For me personally, I think that's the way to go. Remove the pulleys and have a more complex bridle system. It just makes packing away much easier, less likely for tangles, things to go wrong. So one thing I will say about the lines is they've used this Laos Dyneema, which is really low stretch. It's incredibly high-end technical material, but it is quite abrasive on the hand. You combine that with there's a lot of splicing going on there. They certainly don't have a tendency to tangle, but I do think that we'll see an upgrade to those in the V2 to make them a little bit more streamlined. For me, the standout feature of the Frigate is its ease of use and user experience. From flying to rigging, it's just intuitive. You don't need to read any manuals. You can hand it to anybody and they'll get the grip of it really quickly. It's just a nice experience. F1 have clearly designed and produced this from a rider's perspective as opposed to an engineer behind a computer screen. It just feels really nice to fly. Let's talk a little bit now about one of the most important elements of a wing, which is how it packs down. Now, they've introduced this grab handle on the A-lines. I thought this was a bit of a gimmick, if I'm honest with you. I didn't think I was going to use it, but it's really effective. If you use the right technique of grabbing it and then with the bar hand grabbing the leading edge, you can get it away in seconds. This is not only great for when you're on the beach, when you're trying to pack it away and it's windy, but it's great for doing quick turns onto waves and just momentarily getting it out of your hands to be able to ride. I've been using that feature a lot and I'm really enjoying it. Next, let's move on to the full pack down. And I was actually surprised at how well this packs down because the material used isn't quite as thin as some of the top tier ones out there. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But that being said, it packs down into a tiny board. Even the big one, the 4.7, I found I can get that away in a matter of seconds into a little ball and then start riding the bumps. Really impressed with it, despite the materials being slightly thicker and more durable than some of the others. And then lastly, I want to talk about another standout feature that pushes it in front of the pack, and that's its speed and stability. It's blisteringly fast, much more noticeable than other wings that I've used. In fact, I was finding myself overtaking wind wings on the water, which is just phenomenal. Now, with that hand in hand is again its maneuverability. This really means that tacks, jibes, new maneuvers, down loops, whatever you want to try, become really easy. The thing I love about this, it makes you want to do stuff. It makes you want to push your skill set and try new things. All right, as much as I've been banging on about the frigate and how much I love it, not even this bad boy escapes my dreaded dislike section. And the first one I want to talk about is the price point. That, in my opinion, wings are expensive anyway, and this one is definitely in the top echelons. Yes, you do get a harness line. Yes, it is a premium product, but man, it's expensive. I guess the good thing is that, as I've mentioned earlier, you don't need to buy so many because the span is really good, but even still, it is gonna hit the bank account. I was convinced that we were gonna see wings drop in price as more and more people got on board, but it seems that it's the opposite is happening, which is a little bit disappointing, if I'm honest with you. Hopefully we can see this stabilize in 2026. Now, next up, I want to talk about the materials they've used for both the canopy and the lines. Now, don't get me wrong, this is well above average, but for a top tier product, there are a couple out there on the market that is slightly better. I would like to see maybe in V2 them really push the limits in materials used without, of course, raising the cost, which obviously is very challenging, but I'm sure F1 you can do that. And I'm afraid to say that is all I've got in my dislike section. I've really scratched my head to try and find things that I don't like about it. But honestly, they've done such a great job in this V1 product, which, let's be honest with you, is probably more like a V2 because they were so late to the party. Look, one thing I will say, if you're a specialist, let's say, for example, you want to just do downwind sends, well, there probably are better ones on the market. Likewise, if you just want to go upwind and free ride and just enjoy a flat water lake session, again, I'd say something like the Fly Surfer Power, that probably is better suited to you. But for an all-rounder, something that performs incredibly well in all conditions and all disciplines, I think the F1 Frigate is a real contender for the top spot. Look, I hope you've enjoyed it. Like with always, if you've got any questions, type away below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the water again soon.